The last honest conversation Avon Barksdale and Stringer Bell ever have takes place on a balcony with drinks in their hands after both of them have already decided to have the other one killed. They talk about being kids. They laugh. And somewhere in that conversation, Avon says the thing that explains the entire relationship, which is that Stringer was never hard enough for this right here. It is easy to hear that line as an insult about courage. It is not. Stringer Bell is arguably the most ruthless person in the first 3 seasons of The Wire. He has Wallace killed. He has D'Angelo killed, and D'Angelo is Avon's blood. He lies to Omar about who tortured Brandon in order to point a killer at Brother Malzone. He puts hits on partners, employees, and rivals with less hesitation than most people show returning a phone call. If hardness meant willingness to end a life, Stringer would be the hardest man in Baltimore. So Avon is talking about something else. That is what makes the line worth an entire essay. Before getting into it, subscribe if you like these deeper character and story breakdowns from The Wire and other shows. The first thing Avon means is a distinction the show makes over and over without ever stating it directly. Ruthlessness is about what you can do to other people. Hardness is about what you can absorb yourself. Those are not the same capacity, and most people who have one do not have the other. Stringer can do anything to anyone. Stringer cannot take very much. Avon can take almost anything. Look at how each man handles cost. Avon goes to prison and does his time. He does not fall apart. He does not renegotiate his personality. He runs what he can run from inside, and he waits. When Weebay takes the weight for the entire organization, that is a transaction Avon understands from both sides, because he knows he would be expected to do the same. Stringer's relationship to cost is completely different. Stringer manages from outside. Stringer wants a structure where nobody has to bleed, because bleeding is inefficient. That sounds smarter, and in a lot of environments it would be. But it means he has no personal experience of paying, which means he consistently underestimates what other people will pay. That is the practical version of not being hard enough. The second thing Avon means is about commitment. Hardness in Avon's vocabulary means being all the way inside the life, with no exit fantasy running in the background. Stringer is never all the way in. Stringer treats the game as a phase. He is taking economics classes at a community college while running a drug organization. He talks about elastic and inelastic product. He wants meetings, minutes, a co-op, a building downtown, a name on a permit. He is trying to convert one kind of capital into another kind, and everything he does on the street is funding an escape from the street. Avon notices this long before the balcony. He tells Stringer that he bleeds red and Stringer bleeds green. That is the same accusation in a different sentence. You are not in this with me, you are passing through, and one day the corners will be a story you tell at a dinner where nobody knows what happened to Wallace. The third thing Avon means is the most brutal. Hardness means not needing a flattering story about yourself. Avon has no illusions about what he is. He knows he is a gangster. He does not describe himself as a businessman, a community figure, an entrepreneur, or a man forced into circumstances. He is not deceived about his own nature for a single scene in 5 seasons. Stringer needs the story constantly. He needs to be the rational one, the modern one, the one who reads, the one who has evolved past the childish violence of the people around him. And every disaster in Stringer's life comes from the gap between the story and the situation. He tries to buy legitimacy from Clay Davis and gets robbed by a man who correctly identifies him as new money that cannot go to the police. He walks into rooms full of developers who take his money and smile at him. He sits in front of a state senator and a lawyer and does not understand that he is the mark. Avon would never be in that room, and that is Avon's limitation. But Avon would also never be fooled about who was using whom, because Avon watches people rather than models. That is the terrible symmetry inside the line. Stringer studies systems. Avon studies people. The reason Avon can say something so cutting without it being cruel is that he immediately admits the other half. He is not smart enough for the world out there. That is the actual content of the balcony conversation, and it is one of the few moments of complete honesty in the entire series. 2 men admitting they are each fitted to exactly one environment. For years, they had convinced themselves that together they added up to one complete man. Avon supplied the violence, the loyalty, the reputation, and the willingness to be present. Stringer supplied the planning, the discipline, the money, and the ambition. Separately, neither of them is survivable. And they are having this conversation on the night they stop being together. Now watch how each man dies of his own diagnosis. Stringer's death is caused entirely by not being hard enough in Avon's sense. He lied to Omar about Brandon and lied to Avon about Malzone because he assumed that reputation was an accounting item that could be written off. It is not an accounting item. In that world, a man's name is his entire security system, And Brother Malzone comes back for his name the way an institution comes back for money. Stringer thought he could settle it later, or pay it off, or explain it as strategy. He treated a blood matter as a business problem. Then he stands in the shell of the building he was going to develop, the physical form of his exit plan, and two men he insulted walk in and kill him there. He dies inside his own escape. Avon's fall is the mirror image. Avon is not brought down by being too soft. Avon is brought down by being incapable of imagining any other life. He will not leave the corners even when the corners are worth less every year. He goes to war with Marlowe over territory that is generating a fraction of what Stringer's arrangement generated. He gives his location and his guns and his soldiers to a system that has been waiting patiently to take them. Being hard enough for this right here is exactly what keeps him inside this right here. That is the part people miss when they treat the line as Avon winning the argument. The Wire does not present hardness as a virtue. It presents it as fit. Avon is well adapted to a shrinking world. Stringer is poorly adapted to two different worlds at once. Neither adaptation is admirable and neither one saves anybody. Which brings this back out of Baltimore and into the rest of life. The deepest meaning of the line is that there are two completely different kinds of toughness, and people constantly confuse them. The first is the willingness to be hard on others. Firing people, cutting people off, making the cold call, doing the thing that hurts somebody else because the numbers say so. The second is the willingness to be hurt yourself. Staying when it is uncomfortable, absorbing a loss without renegotiating who you are, doing your own time. Our culture usually calls the first one strength. Avon is pointing at the second one. And the reason the distinction matters is that the first kind can be performed by someone who is fundamentally fragile. Stringer proves that all the way through. A man can order a killing on Tuesday and still be unable to tolerate being disrespected in a meeting on Wednesday. A man can be completely ruthless and completely thin-skinned. And the two things are not a contradiction, because ruthlessness never required him to feel anything. There is also a class argument buried in this. Stringer's plan requires him to be embarrassed by where he comes from. He has to see the corner boys as inventory. He has to see D'Angelo as a liability instead of a nephew. He has to see the whole world that made him as a phase he is graduating out of. Avon's world is small and doomed, but Avon is not ashamed of anyone in it. When Avon says Stringer is not hard enough, part of what he is saying is that Stringer has contempt for his own people, and contempt is a form of weakness because it stops you from seeing clearly. Stringer never understood Bodie. Stringer never understood Mozone. Stringer never understood Omar. He kept mistaking pride for irrationality, because in his model pride does not appear as a variable, and every single one of those men was more dangerous to him than the police. There is one more layer, and it is the emotional one. The balcony scene is a goodbye. Both men know something is finished. Avon has already given Stringer up to Malzone. Stringer has already given Avon up to the police. Neither of them can say the true sentence, which is that they betrayed each other, so they say the next truest thing available. You are not built for my world, and I am not built for yours. That is what love sounds like between two people who are about to destroy each other. It is also the closest thing to an apology either one is capable of. So what did Avon mean at his core? He meant that Stringer could kill without hesitating, but could not lose without breaking. He meant that Stringer was renting the life instead of living in it. He meant that Stringer needed to believe he was something better than a gangster, and that the belief was the crack that everything else would eventually come through. He meant that being able to hurt people is common, and being able to endure is rare. And he meant, without saying it, that he was confessing the same kind of limit in himself. Two men on a balcony, drinking, agreeing on the only true thing they ever managed to say to each other. Then the morning comes, and the world takes both of them anyway.